Hello, my fabulous dream chasers, and welcome back to the channel. I'm sorry if I don't look very, enthusiastic or if I look extremely tired. It's because I am. Oh my gosh. I can't even do correct grammar. I almost said 'cause I is. Anyway, I'm back with the second installment of Nancy Drew's Secret of the Old Clock. I'm going to be reading chapters 3 and 4. So, get something to drink, get something to eat. Just cozy up or whatever you want to do. And let's get started. Chapter 3. An Unpleasant Meeting. "What are your plans for this morning, Nancy?" her father asked at the breakfast table. "I thought I'd do a little shopping," she replied. Her eyes twinkled. "There's a dance coming up at the country club, and I'd like to get a new dress." "Then will you phone me about lunch, or..." Sorry, I'm trying to figure out who's talking. Oh, it's oh my gosh. It's Mr. Drew, sorry. Okay. "Then will you phone me about lunch? Or better still, how about eating with me, whether Mr. Rolstead comes or not?" "I'll be there," Nancy declared gaily. "All right. Drop in at my office about 12:30, if Mr. Rolstead does accept my invitation. We'll try to find out something about Josiah Crowley's wills." Mr. Drew pushed back his chair. "I must hurry now, or I'll be late getting downtown." After her father had left, Nancy finished her breakfast, then went to the kitchen to help Hannah Gruen, who had already left the table. "Any errands for me?" Nancy asked. "Yes, dear. Here's a list," the housekeeper replied. "And good luck with your detective work." Hannah Gruen gazed at the girl affectionately, and several thoughts raced through her mind. In school, Nancy had been very popular and had made many friends, but through no fault of her own, she had made two enemies, Ada and Isabel Topham. This worried Hannah. The sisters, intensely jealous of Nancy, had tried to discredit her in positions she had held in school, but loyal friends had always sprung to Nancy's defense. As a result, Ada and Isabel had become more unpleasant than ever to Nancy. "Thanks for your encouragement," she said to Hannah a little later, giving her a hug. "Whatever you do, Nancy, beware of those Topham sisters. They'd be only too happy to make things difficult for you." "I promise to be on my guard." Before leaving the house, Nancy phoned the Turners. She was glad to hear that Judy had suffered no ill effects from her fall, but she was disappointed that the police had found no clue to the thieves who had stolen the silverware. "Please let me know if you learn anything," Nancy said, and Edna promised to do so. Becomingly dressed in a tan cotton suit, Nancy set off in her convertible for the shopping district. She drove down the boulevard, and upon reaching the more congested streets, made her way skillfully through heavy traffic, then pulled into a parking lot. "I think I'll try Taylor's department store first for a dress," she decided. Taylor's was one of River Heights' finest stores. Nancy purchased several items for Hannah on the main floor, then went directly to the Mrs. Waring apparel section on the second floor. Usually, Nancy had no trouble finding a sales clerk, But this particular morning seemed to be an especially busy one in the department, and an extra rush of customers had temporarily overwhelmed the sales force. Nancy sat down in a convenient chair to await her turn. Her thoughts wandered to the Turner sisters and little Judy. Would she be able to help them? She was suddenly brought out of her reverie by loud-voiced complaints. "We've been standing here nearly 10 minutes, a shrill voice declared. "Send a saleswoman to us immediately." Nancy turned to see Ada and Isabel Topham speaking to the floor manager. "I'm afraid I can't," the man replied regretfully. "There are a number of others ahead of you. All our salespeople are—" "Perhaps you don't know who we are," Ada interrupted rudely. "Indeed I do," the floor manager told her wearily. "I will have a saleswoman here in a few moments, if you will only wait." "We're not accustomed to waiting," Isabel Topham told him icily. "Such service," Ada chimed in. "Do you realize that my father owns considerable stock in Taylor's? If we report your conduct to him, he could have you discharged." "I'm sorry," the harassed salesman apologized, "but it is a rule of the store. You must await your turn." Ada tossed her head and her eyes flashed angrily. This did nothing to improve her looks. In spite of the expensive clothes she wore, Ada was not attractive. She was very thin and sallow, and an expression of petulance. Now that her face was distorted with anger, she was almost ugly. Isabel, the pride of the Topham family, was rather pretty, but her face lacked character. She had acquired an artificially elegant manner of speaking, which, although irritating, was sometimes amusing. It was her mother's ambition that Isabel marry into a socially prominent family. "I pity any future husband of hers," Nancy thought with a chuckle. Suddenly, Ada and Isabel saw Nancy, who nodded a greeting. Isabel coldly returned the nod, but Ada gave no indication that she had even noticed Nancy. At that moment, a saleswoman hurried toward the Topham sisters. At once, they began to shower abuse upon the young woman for her failure to wait on them sooner. "What is it you wish to look at, Miss Topham?" the clerk said, flushing. "Evening dresses." The saleswoman brought out several dresses. Nancy watched curiously as the Tophams, in an unpleasant frame of mind, tossed aside beautiful models with scarcely a second glance. They found fault in every garment. "This is a very chic gown," the saleswoman told them hopefully, as she displayed a particularly attractive dress of lace and chiffon. "It arrived only this morning." Ada picked it up, gave the dress one careless glance, then tossed it into a chair, as the distracted clerk went off to bring other frocks. The fluffy gown slipped onto the floor in a crumpled mess. To Nancy's horror, Ada stepped on it as she turned to examine another dress. In disgust, Nancy went to pick it up. "Leave that alone!" Ada cried out, her eyes blazing. "Nobody asked for your help." "Are you buying this?" Nancy asked evenly. "It's none of your business." As Nancy continued to hold the dress, Ada, in a rage, snatched it from her hands, causing a long tear in the chiffon skirt. "Oh!" Isabel cried out. "Now you've done it! We'd better get out of here, Ada." "And why?" her hotly sister shrilled. "It was Nancy Drew's fault. She's always making trouble." "It was not my fault," Nancy said. "Come on, Ada," Isabel urged, "before that clerk gets back." Reluctantly, Ada followed Isabel out of the department. As they rushed toward the waiting elevator, Nancy gazed after them. At this moment, the saleswoman reappeared with an armful of lovely frocks. She stared in bewilderment at the torn dress. "Where did my customers go?" she asked Nancy worriedly. Nancy pointed toward the elevator, but made no comment. Instead, she said, "I'm looking for an evening dress myself. This torn one is very pretty. Do you think it could be mended?" "Oh, I don't know," the woebegone clerk wailed. "I'll probably be held responsible, and I can't afford to pay for the dress." "I'm sure tailors wouldn't ask you to do that," Nancy said kindly. "If there's any trouble, I'll speak to the manager myself. What usually happens is that such a dress is greatly reduced." "Thank you," the clerk replied. "I'll call Miss Reed, the fitter, and see what can be done." "First, let me try on the dress," Nancy said, smiling. They found a vacant waiting room, and Nancy took off her suit and blouse. Then she slipped on the lovely pale blue dance creation over her head, and the saleswoman zipped it up. "It's darling on you," she said enthusiastically. Nancy grinned. "I kind of like myself in it," she said. "Please call the fitter now." Presently, Miss Reed, a gray-haired woman, appeared. Within seconds, she had made a change in an overlap of the chiffon skirt. I don't even know if I'm saying chiffon right. Chiffon? I don't know. I just realized I'm bagging under my eyes. Sorry. Okay. Where was I? The tear was no longer visible, and the style of the dress was actually improved. "I told our manager what happened," said the saleswoman. "If you want the dress, he will reduce the price 50%. "How wonderful!" Nancy exclaimed. Laughing, she said, "That price will fit into my budget nicely. I'll take the dress. Please send it." She gave her name and address. To herself, she added, "Ada Topham did me a favor, but if she ever finds out what happened, she'll certainly be burned up." Nancy suppressed a giggle. "It's been a real pleasure waiting on you, Miss Drew," the saleswoman said after Miss Reed left and Nancy was putting on her suit. "But how I dread to see those Topham sisters come in here. They're so unreasonable, and they'll be even worse when they get Josiah Crowley's money." The woman lowered her voice. "The estate hasn't been settled, but the girls are counting on the fortune already. Last week, I heard Ada say to her sister, 'Oh, I guess there's no question about our getting old Crowley's fortune. But I wish Father would stop worrying that somebody is going to show up with a later will, which may do us out of it.'" Nancy was too discreet to engage in gossip with the saleswoman, but she was interested and excited about the information. The fact that Mr. Topham was disturbed indicated to her that he too suspected Josiah Crowley had made a second will. The conversation reminded Nancy of her date. She glanced at her wristwatch and saw that it was after 12 o'clock. "I must hurry, or I'll be late for an appointment with my dad," she told the saleswoman. Nancy drove directly to her father's office. Although she was a few minutes ahead of the appointed time, she found that he was ready to leave. "What luck, Dad?" Nancy asked eagerly. "Did Mr. Rolstead accept your luncheon invitation?" Excuse me. "Yes, we are to meet him at the Royal Hotel in 10 minutes. Do you still think I should quiz him about the Crowley will?" "Oh, I'm more interested than ever in the case," she told her father about the saleswoman's gossip remarks. Said Mr. Drew. "It's not what you'd call evidence, but the old saying usually holds good. Where there's smoke, there's fire. Come on, let's go." The Royal Hotel was located less than a block away, and Nancy and her father quickly walked the distance. Mr. Rolstead was waiting in the lobby. Carson Drew introduced his daughter, then the three made their way to the dining room, where a table had been reserved for them. At first, the conversation centered about a variety of subjects. As the luncheon progressed, the two lawyers talked enthusiastically of their college days together, and finally of their profession. Nancy began to fear that the subject of the Crowley estate might never be brought up. Then, after the dessert course, Mr. Drew skillfully turned the conversation into a new channel and mentioned some strange cases which he had handled. "By the way," he said, "I haven't heard the details of the Crowley case. How are the Tophams making out? I understand other relatives are trying to break the will." For a moment, Mr. Rolstead remained silent. Was he reluctant to enter into a discussion of the matter? Nancy wondered. Finally, the lawyer said quietly, "The settlement of the estate was given to me, Carson. But I confess, I've followed it rather closely because of something that happened a year ago. As the present will stands, I do not believe it can be broken." Then the Tophams fall heir to the entire estate," Mr. Drew commented. "Yes, unless a more recent will is uncovered." "Another will?" Carson Drew inquired innocently. "Then you believe Crowley made a second one?" Mr. Rolstead hesitated, as though uncertain whether or not he should divulge any further information. Then, with a quick glance about, he lowered his voice and said, "Of course, this is strictly confidential." Chapter 4. Racing the Storm. "Confidential?" Mr. Drew repeated, looking at Mr. Rolstead. "You may rest assured that whatever you tell us will not be repeated to anyone." "Well, I'll say this much," Mr. Rolstead went on. "About a year ago, Josiah Crowley came to me and said he wanted to draw up a new will. He indicated that he intended to spread out his bequests among several people. He expressed a desire to write the will himself and asked me a number of questions. I took him to my office and told him exactly how to proceed. When he left, he promised to have me look over the document after he had drawn it up." "Then you actually saw the will?" Mr. Drew asked in surprise. "No. Strange to say, Crowley never came back. I don't know whether he ever wrote the will or not." "And if he did, there would be a chance that it would not be legal," Nancy spoke up. "Yes. He might have typed it and signed the papers without a witness. In this state at least 2 witnesses are required, and 3 are advisable. What would happen, Nancy asked, if a person were ill or dying and had no witness and wanted to make a will? Mr. Rolstead smiled. That sometimes happens. If the person writes the will himself by hand and signs it, so there's no doubt the same person did both, the surrogate's office will accept it for probate. Then if Mr. Crowley wrote out and signed a new will, it would be illegal, Nancy commented. That's right. But there's another thing to remember. It's pretty risky for someone who is not a lawyer to draw up a new will that cannot be broken. Mr. Drew nodded. If Josiah Crowley left any loophole in a will he wrote personally, the Tophams would drag the matter into court. Yes, it's a foregone conclusion that the Tophams will fight to keep the fortune whether they have a right to it or not. I believe some other relatives have filed a claim, but up to the moment, they have no proof that a later will exists. Although Nancy gave no indication of her feelings, the possibility that Mr. Crowley had made a new will thrilled her. As soon as Mr. Drew paid the luncheon check, the 3 arose and left the dining room. Mr. Rolstead took leave of Nancy and her father in the lobby. Well, Nancy, did you find out what you wanted to know? Mr. Drew asked after the lawyer had left. Oh, Dad, it's just as I suspected. I'm sure Mr. Crowley did make a later will. He hid it someplace. If only I could find out where. It would be like looking for a needle in a haystack, Mr. Drew commented. I must figure out a way, Nancy said, with the determination. I want to help little Judy. She awoke the next morning thinking about the mystery. But where should she start hunting for possible clues to a second will? She continued pondering about it while she showered and dressed. As she entered the dining room, she was greeted with a cheery "Good morning" from her father and Hannah Gruen. During breakfast, Mr. Drew said, Nancy, would you mind doing a little errand for me this morning? Why, of course, Dad. I have a number of legal documents which must be delivered to Judge Hart at Masonville sometime before noon. I'd take them myself, but I have several important appointments. I'd appreciate it if you would drive over there with them. I'll be glad to go, Nancy promised willingly. Besides, it's such a wonderful day. I'll enjoy the trip. Where are the papers? At the office. You can drive me down and I'll get them for you. Nancy, wearing a yellow sunback dress and jacket, hurried away to get her gloves and handbag. Before Mr. Drew had collected his own belongings, she had brought her car from the garage and was waiting for him at the front door. I put the top down so I can enjoy the sun, she explained, as her father climbed in. Good idea. I haven't heard you mention the Crowley case yet today. Mr. Drew teased as they rode along. Have you forgotten about it? Nancy's face clouded. No, I haven't forgotten, but I must admit I am stumped as to where to search for clues. Maybe I can help you. I've learned that the 2 girls on River Road, who expected to be remembered in the will, are named Hoover. You might look them up on your return trip. That's great. I'll watch all the mailboxes for their name. When they reached the building where Mr. Drew had his office, Nancy parked the car and waited while her father went upstairs to get the legal documents to be delivered to Judge Hart. Excuse me. Returning a few minutes later, he placed a fat manila envelope in his daughter's hand. "Give this to the judge. You know where to find him?" "Yes, Dad. In the old Merchants Trust Company building." "That's right." Selecting a recently constructed highway, Nancy rode along, glancing occasionally at the neatly planted fields on either side. Beyond were rolling hills. Woo, try saying that 10 times fast. "Pretty," she commented to herself. "Oh, why can't all people be nice like this scenery and not make trouble?" It was nearly 11 o'clock when she finally drove into Masonville. Nancy went at once to Judge Hart's office, but was informed he had gone to the courthouse. Recalling that her favor had mentioned the necessity of the papers being delivered before noon, she set off in search of the judge. Nancy had considerable trouble trying to see him, and it was 12 o'clock when at last she delivered the manila envelope into his hands. "Thank you very much," he said. "I'll need these directly after lunch." Nancy smiled. "Then I'm glad I found you." Judge Hart learned that Nancy was the daughter of Carson Drew. He at once insisted that she have luncheon with him and his wife at their home before returning to River Heights. She accepted the invitation and spent a very pleasant hour with the Harts. During the meal, the judge laughingly asked if Nancy was still playing aid to her father. "Oh, yes," she said, and at once told him about the Drews' interest in the Crowley case. "Do you know Josiah Crowley or ever hear of him?" "Oh, did you know him?" "Okay," she asked. Both the Harts nodded. "A maid who used to be with them came to work for us after Mrs. Crowley's death," the judge explained. "Jane herself passed away a short time ago." "We never met Josiah," Mrs. Hart added, "but Jane pointed him out to my husband and me one time down on Main Street." "Did he have relatives or friends in town?" Nancy inquired. "I think not," the judge replied. Nancy wondered what old Josiah had been doing in Masonville if he had no relatives or friends there. The town was not known as a spot for sightseeing. Her interest was further quickened when Mrs. Hart remarked that she had seen Mr. Crowley in town at another time also. "How long ago was that?" Nancy asked. Mrs. Hart thought a minute, then replied, "Oh, less than a year, I'd say." When luncheon was over, the judge said he must leave. Nancy told the Harts she too should go. She thanked them for their hospitality, then said goodbye. Soon she was driving homeward. Oh, sorry, my throat's getting a little dry. Okay. Why had Mr. Crowley gone to Masonville? She asked herself. Could it have had anything to do with a later will? Nancy had chosen a route which would take her to River Road. Half an hour later, she turned into the beautiful country road which wound in and out along the Muskoka River. That's a weird name. Muskoka. Or Muskoka. I don't know. And began to look at the names on the mailboxes. Hoover, she reminded herself. About halfway to River Heights, while enjoying the pastoral scenes of cows standing knee-high in Sorry, that was a notification on my laptop. Let me start that sentence again. About halfway to River Heights, while enjoying the pastoral scenes of cows standing knee-high in shallow sections of the stream, and sheep grazing on flower-dotted hillsides, Nancy suddenly realized the sun had been blotted out. A thunderstorm's on the way, she told herself. Sorry, I lost where I was. She told herself, glancing at black clouds scudding across the sky. Guess I'd better put the top of the car up. She pressed the button on the dashboard to raise the top, but nothing happened. Puzzled, Nancy tried again. Still, there was no response. By this time, large drops of rain had started to fall. I'll get soaked, Nancy thought as she looked around. There was no shelter in sight, but ahead, past a steep rise, was a sharp bend in the road. Hopeful that there would be a house or barn beyond. Nancy started the car again. Vivid forked lightning streaked across the sky. It was followed by an earth-shaking clap of thunder. The rain came down harder. Oh, why didn't I bring a raincoat? Nancy wailed. When Nancy swung around the bend, she was delighted to see a barn with lightning rods about a quarter mile ahead. Farther on stood a small white house. I wonder if that's the Hoover place, Nancy mused. By now, the storm was letting loose in all its fury. The sky was as dark as night, and Nancy had to switch on her headlights to see the road. She was already thoroughly drenched at her thought of shelter, and her thought of shelter at this point was one of safety rather than of keeping dry. Nancy turned on the windshield wipers, but the rain was so blinding in its intensity, it was impossible to see more than a few feet ahead. Almost in an instant, the road had dissolved into a sea of mud. Nancy had been caught in a number of storms, but never one as violent as this. She feared a bad skid might land her in a ditch before she could reach the shelter of the barn. How much farther is it? She worried. It didn't seem this far away. The next instant, to Nancy's right, a ball of fire rocketed down from the sky. Oh, that was close, she thought fearfully. Her skin tingled from the electrical vibrations in the air. A moment later, a surge of relief swept over Nancy. At last, she breathed. At the side of the road, the barn loomed up. Its large double doors were wide open.
Okay, I found this on the web for
My iPod thought I said, "Hey Siri." See, when I want my iPod to answer me and I say it, it doesn't respond. But when I don't want it to, it responds. It's so weird. Okay. At the side of the road, the barn loomed up. Its large double doors were wide open. Without hesitation, Nancy headed straight for the building and drove in. The next moment, she heard a piercing scream. And that's the end of chapter 4. Like I said, 2 chapters per video, which will be 10 videos in all because there's 20 chapters. So yeah. Yeah. I know a lot of you have been waiting for this second installment, especially my sister. She came to me this past Friday and she was like, I listened to your reading video when I was doing a lot of work and stuff, because she has her own channel and she does like a lot of art stuff. And she was like, yeah, I was watching it, and then the next thing I knew, it was over, and she was like, that's it? So, yeah, she's been waiting for it. My friend has also been waiting for it, actually, because, they said it's cool that I'm trying something new on my channel, and my friends always support me, so... And my aunt supports me. Obviously, my sister supports me. Since she's like, where's the next video? And like, so yeah. Next video, I will try not to look as tired. I've kind of been staying up late lately. I have no idea why, but yeah. And, this pandemic is like, and like, I feel like people are overreacting and stuff, but I do not want to get this virus. My aunt is currently making a face mask for me. She's already made one for herself and my other aunt and my other aunt's friend. And then if my sister asks, then she'll probably make one for her. But yeah, we're all good here. Nothing bad is happening to any of us. Life is going as it normally does. It is stressful that I can't really go out anywhere with friends at the moment. My current boyfriend was gonna come down and see me this April because he lives up 4 hours or 3.5 hours away. He was gonna come see me this month, but the mayor has put their whole town on lockdown for the whole month of April, until the last day of April, which is the 30th. So, yeah, he's gonna have to wait till May to come see me. For now, we're video chatting, which is, better than nothing. So yeah, and my mom's doing fine, my brother's doing fine. Basically, like, everybody is doing okay. The family that I have in New York, they're on lockdown right now, but one of my cousin who lives in New York, she is a nurse, so she has a pass to go out of the house and stuff. She helps deliver babies and takes care of the mother's needs and stuff for the period of time that they're at the hospital. So yeah, other than that, they can't go anywhere. They have to stay in the house if they're not a nurse or doctor or surgeon. If they don't work in the hospital or at a doctor's office, I think might be just the hospitals, I'm not sure. But yeah, if nobody is if there's anyone who doesn't have one of those professions, then they have to stay on lockdown inside their house. No leaving, no going outside. Although, if I would assume that going out in your backyard would be okay if you're in New York. But I'm not sure. My aunt who lives down there just texted me. So, yeah. I hope you're all doing okay during this pandemic. I will have the third installment of the book uploaded next week, because I'm gonna do this every Wednesday, because that's when I started it. But if you guys want it sooner, then let me know, and I can do it like Friday or Sunday or Monday, Tuesday. I can't do it Saturday because I'm going out shopping with my mom and stuff. Because our town is not on lockdown. So, yeah, it's like southern Maine. We're not really on lockdown. So, Sanford, Springville. I don't think Alfred is. I don't think Shapley is either. Wells. My aunt and I were in. Where were we? Anyway, we were near Limerick, and there were still people out driving around and stuff, so it's like the whole of southern Maine isn't, or maybe half of southern Maine isn't on lockdown, because I heard Portland's on lockdown. Because they have a bigger population in Portland than we do here in Sanford and Springville. And there's a lot more things to do, and there's a lot more places where there's a large gathering of people in one place, like the main mall and the bookstore and craft stores and grocery stores and everything, restaurants, car dealerships, all that jazz. So, yeah. Anyway. Yeah, so I will post a picture on Instagram of me with my gorgeous face mask on when it's all done. And I wanted to let you guys know, if you did not see it, I posted on Instagram that I am looking for anyone to create a new logo and banner for my YouTube channel. I just felt like it's time for something new and stuff. Currently I have a picture of me with a Snapchat filter as my profile picture, and my banner is kind of old because it has the Google Plus logo, and Google Plus shut down as of early of last year. So if you would like to participate, you can, and you can draw it, you can use a digital art program on your computer, you can just do a simple photo editing app on your phone or iPad, tablet, whatever you have. And if you would like a picture of me to help you get like an idea of what you're doing, what you want to do to create my logo and banner and stuff, then just message me on Instagram at DreamChaserGrace, or you can message me on Twitter at DreamChaserGG. So the GG is like 2 G's, not GEEGE. Like, yeah. Or you can tag me in Instagram posts or whatever. You could also text me on Snapchat. My username is at YoshiMania2000. Hey, I was just having fun. I wasn't really thinking of the name for my Snapchat, and I love Yoshi, so 2000 was the year I was born, so excuse me. Anyway, so yeah, if you want to participate in that, the winner will get a shout out in my next video, and maybe I'll send you like some stickers or something, because I've actually been trying to work on trying to get like some products going and stuff. I don't have a lot of money for it or anything, but I just work with what I have. Like, a lot of people tell me that I'm a great drawer. So I've like done a few drawings. I've done this bunny, and it's just random doodles there. A rainbow, pickle by Mariah Elizabeth. I have the plushie, and I have a shirt. It's just some random rainbows. Princess that I drew. This is supposed to be me in like a Hello Kitty style or something. So, yeah, basically that's my idea, is that I'm just going to draw some things and then like print it out on sticker paper or something, and then I can, send you guys stuff like products. Like, I do have an Etsy. I haven't started putting anything on it because I don't have anything yet. But once I do, I'll probably put my products up there. If I need help, then my sister can help me, because she uses it all the time to sell products that she's created. Oh, I forgot, I made this. I wanted this to be my logo or banner, but can't really, because I did it on lined paper, and I don't have a program to like upload a picture of it and get rid of the lines and stuff. My aunt does, but I don't know. So yeah. So that's it for the second installment of Nancy Drew, The Secret of the Old Clock. Participate in the contest if you would like. And I will just post updates and stuff. If I do end up drawing something and printing it out on sticker paper, then like I can just punch out or cut out the stickers and like sell them on Etsy, and whoever the winner is, I'll send one to you. And you'll get a shout out in my next video. But yeah, submit them. Submit your creations to me via direct messenger on Instagram, or send them to me on Snapchat, or if you want, you could post them and or whatever. Sorry, it's the tiredness. But remember to stay within the size, the proper banner size that YouTube requires you to have. If you don't know what it is, you can easily look it up. You can look up how big should my YouTube banner be, and it'll tell you the size that it should be. And yeah, so that's it, I guess. Comment, like, subscribe, share. I put a new video can't talk. I put a new video out almost every single week. I'm trying my best to keep going with the every single week thing. It's just hard to remember and stuff, and it's hard to like figure out what to do for a video. So yeah, that's the last thing. Suggest things and video ideas for me to do in the future. Until the next video, I love you, dream chasers.